Okay. All right, everybody, bow your heads with me. Let's open with a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for this evening together. We thank you for the people of this church, what you've built here for these evenings together, God, for your holy word and for the wisdom and the edifying power that lays herein. We ask, God, that you would build us up this evening, that you would move among us, that you would take your word and brand it on our hearts, Lord, that we would see the messages in your word, even in the Old Testament, and see the wisdom and how applicable it is to the way that we live our lives now, and that you would make us better Christians through it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So a pastor was giving a fiery sermon on legacy one Sunday, and he's giving a fiery sermon on legacy one Sunday, and he's getting really worked up, and the end of the sermon, he looks down at the three guys sitting in the front row, and he takes his finger and he goes, "You there, sir, what do you want your family to say when they're gathered at your funeral and looking down at your lifeless body in that casket?" And the man says, "Well, I guess I'd want them to say I was a good husband and a kind man and did good works for people." He said, "Very good. What about you, man? What would you like for them to say, brother, looking down on your lifeless body?" And he goes, "Well, I'd want to be known as a good husband and a good Christian and a pillar of the community." And he says, "Wonderful. What about you, brother? What would you want someone to say looking down on your lifeless body in the casket?" And he goes, "Well," his finger moved. "I think he's coming around." Come on. No. Don't do that to me. This is a good one. Oh. Afterward. I'm going to see you after class. So we're looking at 1 Samuel 5 tonight. And we remember the end of 1 Samuel 4. A whole bunch of bad stuff happened. At the very, very end of it, the wife of one of the sons of Eli died in labor, or right after labor, looked up at her son and said, "Name him Ichabod, because the glory has departed from Israel." So the Israelites have been defeated. Eli is dead. His two children, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead. The ark has been taken. The glory has departed from Israel. But before we go off following the adventures of the Ark of the Covenant as it wreaks havoc among the Philistine cities, we need to address a glaring omission from the author here. Now, the Ark is certainly the main focus and definitely worth following. But what happened to everybody else? Yeah, what about the rest of the Israelites? What about the temple at Shiloh? What about the priesthood? Well, the author of 1 Samuel doesn't tell us at all. But we know from the rest of the Bible that after the Israelites were routed in battle, the Philistines marched on Shiloh, where they razed the city, and they sacked the temple, and they killed the priests, and they killed anybody else that they could find. Psalm 78, verses 60 through 64 says, "So that he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent which he placed among men, and delivered his strength into captivity, and his glory into the enemy's hand. He gave his people over also unto the sword, and was wroth with his inheritance. The fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not given to marriage. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation." Jeremiah 7:12, "But go ye now into my place which was in Shiloh, where I set my name at the first, and see what I did to it for the wickedness of my people Israel." Jeremiah 26:9, "Why hast thou prophesied in the name of the Lord, saying, This house shall be like Shiloh, and this city shall be desolate without an inhabitant? And all the people were gathered against Jeremiah in the house of the Lord." That's Jeremiah preaching, he's prophesying to Judah, and they're coming back at him saying, Jeremiah, why are you prophesying in the name of the Lord, saying that this house is going to be like Shiloh? The destruction was so great, the prophet Jeremiah, hundreds of years later, was referring to it as a cautionary tale. He was telling the people of Judah that they were going to be like the proverbial destruction of Shiloh, and they were accusing him of prophesying falsely. Now, through all this, God saw fit to protect the young prophet Samuel, and he allowed him to escape the carnage. But think about what that means, though. Samuel would have been effectively leading the Israelites at that point. Because as we read last week, the people recognized Samuel, even at his young age, as a prophet of God, and that God was at long last, that this drought is over. He's speaking again to the people of Israel, and he's doing that through Samuel. They recognized it. But at that time, he had Eli and Hophni and Phinehas. He had people in station above him running things, albeit poorly, but they were running things. Now at a young age, and we don't know exactly what age he's at, how much time has passed between his calling and this battle, but not long. Now at a young age, he's the default leader of Israel. He has inherited the position because everybody else is dead. So keep that in mind as we read through the escapades of the Ark of God's covenant in the towns of the Philistines here. Some of this, y'all aren't going to like. It's okay. It gets a little graphic. That's okay. We can handle that. We're all adults here. Well, not all adults here, but earmuffs. Verses 1 through 5. And the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. When the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again. And when they arose early on the morrow morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. Therefore neither the priests of Dagon nor any that come into Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod unto this day. It's neat, isn't it? The Philistines, they've beaten the Israelites soundly, and they've taken the ark, which is it's this great military prize from an enemy whose reputation for having divine assistance, for having the hand of God on him, it well precedes them. We remember, the Philistines took the ark to the capital of their 5 major cities, Ashdod, which was about 35 miles west of Jerusalem, near the Mediterranean Sea. But it wasn't long ago that the blinded Hebrew Samson killed over 3,000 Philistine worshipers by destroying a temple. So now it's a fitting symbol of the conquered enemy. They're going to take this trophy and put it in their own temple as an offering. That's essentially what this is. They are offering God's ark to their god Dagon. And Dagon was the national god of the Philistines, so the whole nation of them. He had the head and arms of a man and the body of a fish. And the name is thought to have derived from dag, which just means fish in that tongue there. It's a derivation from it. But the temple was adorned with this giant statue of their merman deity. So the ark sat right next to it because Dagon was held as responsible for giving them the victory over the Israelites. And so they set the ark in the temple, probably, said a little chant, burnt some incense, something like that. Whatever their ceremony looked like, they put the ark in there and then they call it a night. And the next morning, when the people of Ashdod go into the temple, they find the statue of Dagon just pushed over. And the ark's still standing right there, and Dagon's pushed over. It had fallen on its face before the Ark of the Covenant. That's some heavy-handed symbolism, isn't it? So I imagine they were a little confused. The statue wasn't broken, it had just fallen over. And I don't remember any earthquakes last night. Do you? Everything seems normal. Weird, huh? Statue just fell over. Did y'all check the ground? Is everything level there? All right, I don't know what went on. So they set it back up. They get a few guys, they tilt the thing back up. They write it off as just one of those things, go about the rest of their day. But then the next morning when they go back to the temple, what do they find this time? Well, it happened again. Dagon is toppled over before the ark once again, but this time his head has been removed and his hands have been removed. As the King James puts it, it's only the stump of Dagon was left him, but literally translated, it's only Dagon was left upon him. That's to say, he was all fish. Dagon was just a lump of Dagon now. All the human, all the deified parts of their God were gone. His head, his wisdom, his hands, his strength, his ability to act, they were all gone. They were removed and left laying on the threshold of the temple. And so from that day forward, out of this warped reverence to Dagon, the priests would not step on the threshold of the temple of Dagon. They step over it, which is insane. I don't know how much God's got to spell it out for somebody. Completely neutralized their little pagan deity, cut off his human parts, put him on the threshold, and we're going to show him reverence by stepping over where his parts were dismembered and laid. It's just how far gone they were as a people. Verses 6 and 7. But the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod, and he destroyed them, and smote them with emerods, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. Excuse me. And when the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, the ark of God of Israel shall not abide with us, for his hand is sore upon us, and upon Dagon our God. So the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod. Now that phrase, used in other places, has a connotation of everything going wrong, of crops dying, of the waters drying up. It's punishment from outside parties, punishment from all sides. It's a whole host of maladies that God can bring about. And more than likely, the Philistines are seeing some other effects of being on God's bad side, but the big one that they focus on here is the emerods. Anyone know what emerods are? Hemorrhoids. Emerod is a derivation of the word hemorrhoid. Now, that's our best guess, but it's a pretty good guess. At no point do we have an illustrated Old Testament that says this is what we're talking about here, but that is what they're talking about. The word's only used once here and in Deuteronomy, and it's boils, ulcers, sores. It could mean a lot of things, but the connotation that we get from the ancient Israelites passed down through tradition and what we get from the rest of the Bible does point out pretty clearly that this affliction was hemorrhoids. So these people had committed a heinous act, a heinous act against God, and then they took the Ark of the Covenant, offered it to their pagan fish deity, and God didn't just smite them with boils, he smote them with sores on their most delicate parts. And when this passage was ever read in the synagogue among the Jews, going forward from this through Jewish tradition, they wouldn't read the word emerods. Common practice was for the reader to use the word tehorim instead, which was just a common skin disease. They would just say boils. They wouldn't say what it actually was out of a sense of delicacy to it. They didn't feel the need to conjure the imagery among people. I did, but they didn't. I know. The affliction was so great, the message finally started to sink in, and the Philistines put two and two together, and they said, well, they defeated the Israelite army, but they hadn't come anywhere close to defeating the Israelite God. So they said, we need to get rid of this ark. Verses 8 and 9. They sent, therefore, and gathered all the lords of the Philistines unto them, and said, what shall we do with the ark of the God of Israel? And they answered, let the ark of God of Israel be carried unto Gath. And they carried the ark of God of Israel about thither. And it was so that after they had carried it about, the hand of the Lord was against the city with a very great destruction. And he smote the men of the city, both small and great, and they had emerods in their secret parts. Y'all giggling like a... It just goes on your face. Oh, man. thousands of years. Y'all think we got problems. So they called for a conclave of all the Philistine leaders. And we remember there were 5 of them. There were 5 lords who ruled 5 major Philistine cities. And the leader of Ashdod says, guys, we can't take this anymore. I don't even want to tell y'all what's going on. It's the ark. I swear it is. And you have to think the other 4 guys might have looked at him crazy and not believe, because they don't say, all right, let's get rid of it. They just say, hey, this is a great prize. We're not about to get rid of this thing. And either the leader of Gath volunteers or to have the honor of this great trophy in his city, or they vote, or they delegate, or whatever they do. Regardless, the ark gets taken to Gath. Y'all remember Gath? We haven't talked about it yet, but that's the home of Goliath. So it's a large town which, by all accounts, did not have a temple to Dagon in it. It was not a temple city. It was just a big city. And they end up taking it there and putting it on display. But things don't go any better at Gath. In fact, the language seems to kick up just a little bit here. Once again, the hand of the Lord was against the city, but this time the destruction was very great. And God afflicted the men of the city, both young and old, with emerods. And it says in their secret parts, but we don't really know if that might mean their covered parts, which is what we would normally associate with it, or a number of commentaries believe that means that the outer affliction had become internalized. From the Benson commentary, this is the worst kind of emerods, as all physicians acknowledge, both because their pains are far more sharp than those of the other kind, and because the malady is more out of the reach of remedies. So internalized, not only do they hurt worse, but you can't doctor them. Verses 10 through 12. Therefore they sent the ark of God to Ekron. And it came to pass, as the ark of God came to Ekron, that the Ekronites cried out, saying, they have brought about the ark of the God of Israel to us, to slay us and our people. So they sent and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and said, send away the ark of the God of Israel, and let it go again to his own place, that it slay us not and our people. For there was a deadly destruction throughout all the city. The hand of God was very heavy there, and the men that died not were smitten with emerods, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. So we don't know how long it lasted in Gath. We don't know how long it lasted in any of these cities here, but it's too long if you ask me. And we don't know if they had another conclave and they decided to try it just one more time, or if the people of Gath just took it upon themselves to get rid of the ark, whatever. It was soon on its way to Ekron. And no sooner did it get there than the people of Ekron are flipping out, because their word's getting around. They're starting to hear about what has happened at the other Philistine cities, and they don't want any part of that. But here it is anyway. It's being delivered to the city. And now the hand of God was very heavy upon Ekron. So it's yet another escalation of the language. We've gone from Ashdod, where the hand of God was heavy and he destroyed them and the people were smitten, to Gath, where there was a very great destruction and all the men of all ages were smitten, to Ekron, where the hand of God was very heavy and brought about a deadly destruction. So people are not just in pain now, they're dying. And those that weren't dying were smitten with emerods. So the people of Ekron demanded another conclave, and that the ark of Israel be sent back to its own place. 1 Samuel chapter 6. And the ark of the Lord was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. And the Philistines called for the priests and the diviners, saying, what shall we do to the ark of the Lord? Tell us wherewith we shall send it to his place. And they said, if ye send away the ark of the God of Israel, send it not empty, but in any wise return him a trespass offering. Then ye shall be healed, and it shall be known to you why his hand is not removed from you. Then said they, what shall be the trespass offering, which we shall return to him? They answered, 5 golden emerods, and 5 golden mice, according to the number of the lords of the Philistines. For one plague was on you all, and on your lords. Wherefore ye shall make images of your emerods and images of your mice that mar the land, and ye shall give glory unto the God of Israel. Peradventure he will lighten his hand from off you, and from off your gods, and from off your land. Still?
Well, they didn't have Polaroids, so I'm curious.
You do.
Now the gullible
You're in luck. Will y'all cue up the PowerPoint? I'm just kidding. So 7 months. 7 months the Philistines shifted the ark back and forth between their cities, among their cities, pardon me, not between, among their cities, watching the plagues of God follow it around wherever it went. 7 months they afflicted themselves, mind you. They could have given up their trophy. They could have given up this shiny thing that they had won from the world. They could have acknowledged the will and the power of God and have let go of this singular sinful fixation and seen the hand of God leave their land, but they persisted. They wanted this thing that they had won. There's a lesson in that.
Yeah, this was just men, right, that were afflicted.
I don't know.
It keeps saying men.
Well, it keeps saying men, but it says men all the time when it's wanting to collectively say that.
But this sounds more like something that would happen to men.
You don't think it would have lasted 7 months if the women were afflicted?
I think it's the
They believe. Y'all are also the ones that have been laughing the most. Y'all are also the ones that have been laughing the most.
Yeah. Well, let that be a lesson to you men.
Oh, so when they finally had enough, they gathered together the priests of Dagon and their diviners and all their wise men, and they asked them, what should we do with the ark? And this brain trust gathered, and they said, what do we do? And they said, whatever you do, don't send it back empty. We seem to have trespassed against the God of Israel. And if that's the case, then we need to try and make this right. We need to try and make amends. So send it with an offering, and then if the plague is removed from among us, we will know it was the God of Israel that's been afflicting us so. So the leaders of the Philistines say, that sounds good. What have you got in mind? And this is not out of left field. There was a custom in those days among the heathen. It was eventually picked up by Christians even for a time here too. This is from a commentary by Kyle. After recovery from an illness or rescue from any danger or calamity, a representation of the member healed or the danger passed through was placed as an offering in the temple of the deity to whom the person had prayed for deliverance. Thus, after a shipwreck, any who escaped presented a tablet to Isis or Neptune with the representation of a shipwreck upon it. Gladiators offered their weapons, emancipated slaves, their fetters. There are images remaining of the offerings of the Christians of the 4th century church in Rome who would hang images in the church of the saint they invoked in their pursuit of relief. So there was a custom, there was a general belief at that time. If you want relief from something, you're offering in order to try and effect that relief should somehow bear the image of that thing that you're coming through, the thing that is afflicting you, or if it's a thank offering, the thing from which you have been rescued. That's why if you were in a shipwreck, well, you get a picture of a shipwreck and take it to the temple and offer it up to Neptune and say, Neptune, you remember this, right? Yep, you saved me there and I appreciate it, and here this is for you. So that's what they're doing here. And when the wise men gathered there or asked what the offering would be, they prescribed 5 golden hemorrhoids and 5 golden mice. I don't know. Do you cast those?
I know, this was nice to model. I know.
Y'all are having too much fun with this.
Is this a volunteer kind of thing, or do they like take that for our prisoners?
No, it's the village idiot. I don't know. Teenagers who talk out of turn. Oh, so they recommend 5 golden hemorrhoids and 5 golden mice. Why the mice? Because along with the physical affliction, their nation has been overrun by mice. They go into a little more detail in that here, but mice have been destroying crops, they've been destroying food stores, they've been spreading disease, they've even been biting people, and the number of mice that we're talking about are such that you'd go out to your field one evening and see, oh, that's a beautiful field, and come back the next morning and it's all gone. They were overrun with field mice. And so they say, this is our affliction. Let's cast it in gold. Let's offer it up, one for each of the lords of the Philistines, and give glory to the God of Israel so that he will take his hand off of us, off of our gods, and off of our land, which is just a completely backwards, obstinate perception of their situation. They're sacrificing to the one and only God in hopes that he will leave alone their lesser gods. God, here's a golden mouse and a golden emerald. Will you please leave my fish god alone? I know.
Why would you even have a fish god?
I wouldn't. They're delicious. That's.
Well, they may be good to eat.
No, I can't say. You'd think a pig god would be taken at that point too, Verses 6 through 9. Wherefore then do ye harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts when he had wrought wonderfully among them? Did they not let the people go, and they departed? Now therefore make a new cart, and take 2 milch kine, in which there hath come no yoke, and tie the kine to the cart, and bring their calves home from them. And take the ark of the Lord, and lay it upon the cart, and put the jewels of gold, which ye return him for a trespass offering, in a coffer beside thereof, and send it away, that it may go. And see if it goeth up by the way of his own coast to Bethshemesh, then he hath done us this great evil. But if not, then we shall know that it is not his hand that smote us, it was a chance that happened to us. So that's an odd way of saying what they're prescribing here, but we'll break it down. So first off, this is still the sages. This is still the diviners and the brain trusts and the priests of Dagon talking to them. They're telling the lords of the Philistines, don't make the same mistake the Egyptians made. Y'all remember that? The God of Israel wrought wonderfully among them. He worked great and terrible and glorious plagues on those people. Don't let it get as bad for us as it got for them. Here's what you do. Make a brand new cart. Get 2 heifers that have never been under the yoke, 2 completely untrained, unbroken cows that will do whatever is in their nature to do, and then take the calves from those 2 cows and put them in the barn. Put the ark on that new cart. Put the golden emeralds and the golden mice on that cart in a coffer on the side, because even the Philistines dared not open the ark and look inside it. They just glorified it as a trophy of sorts, but they didn't put anything inside it. They just took the mice and the hemorrhoids and the golden trinkets that they had and put it in a separate chest here. And then hitch up these cows that have never been under a yoke. Hitch them up to the new cart, point it at Bethshemesh, and let it go. And if the cows don't go to their calves, if they go against the natural tendency that they have to return back to the barn and to their calves, if the cows forego that and they just follow the coastline and proceed on to Bethshemesh, then we will know for sure that the hand of God is taking a hold of those cows and leading the ark back to his people. But if the cows return to their calves, if there's no supernatural intervention in this, or if they just wander or stand there or whatever, then we will know that this whole time it was just chance or fate or whatever you want to chalk it up to. It was never the God of the Israelites at all. All right, so brand new cart. They felt the need to give the God of the Israelites something new, something that hadn't been tainted before. 2 brand new cows that have not been trained to travel forward. They've never had blinders on. They've never had a yoke on them. They're not trained to operate a cart in any way. They're just going to go with what their gut instinct is. And then stack the deck a little bit. Take their calves away from them, put them in the barn, so if they want to return, we know that there's some kind of divine hand pulling them away from their natural inclination and pointing them toward Bethshemesh. Verses 10 through 12. And the men did so, and took 2 milch kine, and tied them to the cart, and shut up their calves at home. And they laid the ark of the Lord upon the cart, and the coffer with the mice of gold, and the images of their emerods. And the kine took the straight way to the way of Bethshemesh, and went along the highway, lowing as they went, and turned not aside to the right hand or to the left. And the lords of the Philistines went after them unto the border of Bethshemesh. So the Philistines do exactly what was prescribed by their wise men. They made a cart, got 2 mama cows, took their calves, strapped them into the cart, filled a chest with the weirdest gold offering you're going to see in all of the Bible, and then they turned it all loose. And lo and behold, the cows went straight to Bethshemesh, lowing the whole way as they went down. And I used to think lowing was like quiet mooing, like a nice peaceful sound, because when I was young and I would hear that in the Christmas Carol Away in a Manger, it paints this serene, peaceful scene, and I always thought, oh, the cattle are lowing. That is nice. That's quaint. That's not what that means. I contextually defined it when I was a kid, but that's not what lowing means. It's loud. It's essentially the Old English word for loud mooing. The cows are not happy doing what they're doing, but they can't stop themselves. They're marching towards Beth Shemesh, and they would rather go somewhere else because the hand of God has grabbed hold of them and is pulling these cows. So they load all the way down the road to Beth Shemesh without turning to the right or to the left. They didn't stutter, they didn't stop, they didn't veer off course. God grabbed them, pulled them straight towards Beth Shemesh. And the lords of the Philistine followed those cows the whole way to watch and to see what happened, to make sure that nothing went wrong and that their ordeal was finally going to be over after 7 months of the worst affliction that they've ever had. And they stopped right at the border of Beth Shemesh, where they seemed to not dare tread back on God's land, lest they offend him even further. Verses 13 through 15. And they of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley, and they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark and rejoiced to see it. And the cart came into the field of Joshua, a Bethshemite, and stood there where there was a great stone. And they clave the wood of the cart and offered the kine a burnt offering unto the Lord. And the Levites took down the ark of the Lord and the coffer that was with it, wherein the jewels of gold were, and put them on the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and sacrificed sacrifices the same day unto the Lord. Now, Beth Shemesh means house of the sun. This was one of the priestly cities that were given to the Levites. Y'all remember when they cast lots at the end of Joshua, after they had conquered everything, and they said, here, you're going to cast and you cast lots, and they divvied everything out. But the Levites, since they didn't have land, they didn't have land to work, they initially lived off of sacrifices and stuff. They got cities so that the presence of God would be spread throughout all of the different tribes of Israel. So Beth Shemesh is one of those cities. It's a Levite city. So it's fair to say that this city would have keenly felt the news 7 months earlier that the ark of God had been captured. It would have pierced them to their soul. It would have hurt. And 7 months later, this particular morning would have seemed like any other. The plains of Judah patchworked with wheat fields, dotted with people, and each of them are busying themselves, and they're reaping and binding, and just like in Ruth, the poor are following behind them, gathering up whatever bits of grain that they can to feed themselves. And it would have been a relatively cool morning, maybe a little bit of fog, who knows. And then all of a sudden, spotted coming down the road, these two very loud cows, which may not have been that remarkable of a sight, honestly. But then what's on the back of their cart? What's that glittering object catching the first rays of the morning sun? That's the ark. Surely not. That was gone 7 months ago. It's this 4-foot by 2-foot chest of acacia wood that is covered inside and outside with solid gold, so it is glittering, with a solid gold lid on top. Y'all remember that had to weigh about 300 pounds because it was solid gold, and we went through the dimensions of it. And then it's got the two angels with their wings cast towards each other on the mercy seat on top of the ark. It's unmistakable, even if they have never seen it in person, because it resides in the Holy of Holies, and that's not their stomping ground. Even still, they've got access to the Word of God to see the description of the ark. They know what it is. The glory of God had departed from Israel, and now it's making its way back, and the people in this Levite city are rejoicing. And that's probably putting it mildly. And the cart rolled right into the middle of a field in Beth Shemesh, and it came to a stop at a large rock that was protruding out of this wheat field. And the people, more than likely at the direction of one of their priests, broke apart the wood of the cart, and the priest offered the cows as a burnt offering in thanks to God for the ark's return, right there on the spot. Verses 16 through 18. And when the 5 lords of the Philistines had seen it, they returned to Ekron the same day. And these are the golden emerods which the Philistines returned for a trespass offering unto the Lord. For Ashdod 1, for Gaza 1, for Askelon 1, for Gath 1, for Ekron 1. And the golden mice, according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines belonging to the 5 lords, both of the fenced cities and of country villages, even unto the great stone of Abel, whereon they set down the ark of the Lord, which stone remaineth unto this day in the field of Joshua the Bethshemite. So the 5 lords of the Philistines made it up to the border of Bethshemesh. They didn't cross over. They witnessed the scene. They returned home content that all of this is about to be behind us. It wasn't chance that's plagued us for the last 7 months. It was the hand of God. We just witnessed it. And then they were given a little bit more detail about the offering of gold that was offered up for their trespasses. 5 golden emerods, whatever they looked like, whatever shape that takes. And it lists the major city of the Philistine lords and said it was one for this city and one for this city, because that was what was being afflicted. It was the men of the cities. But then it says the golden mice were offered according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines. It said, belonging to the 5 lords, both of the fenced cities and of country villages, even unto the great stone of Abel. Mice were everywhere. The emerods broke out in the 5 major cities as they were moving the ark back and forth, but the mice were absolutely everywhere. So they were offered according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines. We can't really say how many that was, because it doesn't just say the cities listed in the Bible. It says all of the cities and the country villages and the things that we may not have even counted as a full-on city. Just to be safe, throw a golden mouse in there. And the logical conclusion... No, that's exactly what we just talked about. Verses 19 through 21. And he smote the men of Bethshemesh because they had looked into the ark of the Lord. Even he smote of the people 50,000 and 70 men. And the people lamented because the Lord had smitten many of the people with a great slaughter. And the men of Bethshemesh said, Who is able to stand before this holy Lord God, and to whom shall he go up from us? And they sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kirjath-jearim, saying, The Philistines have brought against the ark of the Lord. Come ye down and fetch it up to you. So despite the offerings and the reverence with which the ark was initially treated and the instructions of the priest whenever it arrived in that field, something went wrong. At some point, word got around, this thing started seeming common. The people forgot themselves, and the ark turned into a cheap spectacle for the people there. And there's a bit of disagreement on what exactly happened here. Because some people think the men of Bethshemesh feasted and celebrated because they were happy, and in their revelry, eventually they forgot themselves and actually looked inside the ark. And that was a line even the Philistines wouldn't cross over. And that's, y'all remember the movie? Y'all know the movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark. What happens when you look inside the ark? And Harrison Ford tells that girl, I forget her name, but they're tied to that stake. He's like, don't look, close your eyes, don't look, because he knows what's about to happen when they look inside the ark. I doubt it was anything like that. Who knows? It may have been, who knows? But I doubt it. But if it was looking inside the ark, God killed 50,000 people for it. Now, I don't know if that's saying that every one of the 50,000 people would have been looking inside the ark, because that would have been crowded. This thing wouldn't, but 4 foot by 2 foot right around there, that would have been a very long line of people orderly getting there to look inside the ark, or maybe they were all crowded around it or something like that, some kind of mob mentality that broke out. No idea. Or maybe a few of them did it, the leaders of them did it, and God, just as he's done with some other cities, with the when the leaders turn, that he punishes the whole city just to completely weed out the wickedness at the root here. We don't know. It's not impossible logistically that 50 people could look inside the ark, but it's also not impossible that God brought judgment on a whole town for the presumptuous nature of a few people to look inside the ark. But the other school of thought is that the ark was prominently displayed on the great rock in the field there in Bethshemesh, where it just rolled up and stopped, and the people just began to look at it. And that may not sound bad to us, but listen, the law of God from Numbers chapter 4 says, Aaron and his sons shall go in and appoint them every one to his service and to his burden, but they shall not go in to see when the holy things are covered, lest they die. Now that might mean that even Aaron and his sons, the priests, could not view the ark casually, and that the ark was covered all the time, or when it refers to the holy things that are covered, it could be talking about the tablets of the law, the pot of manna, the budded staff of Aaron, holy things that are covered within the ark that shouldn't be viewed casually. It seems to be saying that in that case that Aaron and his sons weren't even supposed to go in there and just gawk at the ark. It was supposed to be reverence. You were supposed to avert your eyes with it, almost like you couldn't look directly at the glory of God. You shouldn't be looking directly at the mercy seat, the physical presence of God, where he has chosen to be his focal point while he dwells among men. If the ark could not be viewed even casually, then when the people of Beth Shemesh stood there gawking at it in this morbid curiosity and awe because they had never seen before, then the lack of reverence was an offense to God. We don't know which way it went, but either way, 50,000 people were struck down by the hand of God. They lost more to irreverence than they did to the battle with the Philistines 7 months earlier. They only lost like 35,000 people in that. They lost over 50,000 here. And the people lamented. I'm sure they lamented. And they repented and recognized they had cheapened the glory of the presence of God, and they marveled among themselves at his power, and they returned to their proper humility, and they said, you know what, we got to get this ark out of here. This has smitten a bunch of us, and we're obviously not equipped to deal with it. So they sent messengers to the neighboring city of Kirjath-jearim to ask them to come and take the ark from their presence, and no doubt offered them a little bit of caution in the process. So you need to come down here and get this ark, but let me tell you first, it just killed 50,000 of us. So maybe you wear a mask when you do it or something like that. And people, that's 2 chapters. That's 45 minutes. That's not that bad, right? Got your money's worth.
Even in Sherman, God forbid, if 50,000 people at one time would be killed, can you imagine just trying to take care of the barrel and everything? And we have all kinds of equipment and everything. Back then they did. Just the sheer amount of work to take care of 50,000 dead people.
Think of all the widows.
Again. It was just a man.
It's just a
Think of the widow. It was just a man. I don't know. On that one, you kind of might think if somebody said, hey, honey, I saw the ark today, she'd be like, and you left me here? I think we need to go. Get your sandals back on.
How do you wrap your head around that number at one time?
How many people are in Sherman? 30 something?
I don't know. But it would be all of Sherman?
Can you imagine if I wanted to take that many
That's
people
what
to even
even gather them up and bury them and everything. And like I said, they have no machinery. We have machinery.
Sherman, Texas is 47,473.
That would be
That's every single soul in Texas. That'd be pretty rough if we looked in the ark, just a handful of us, and then everybody else in Sherman got wiped off the map for our presumptuousness. That'd be horrible. But again, we don't know which way to go. And the bodies would be horrible unless it was actually like Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then all you need is